Alrighty, what's up, dudes? We're back again with another Moonkin Monthly. I think this is probably going to come out at the first day of May, but this is effectively the April Moonkin Monthly. This is looking to probably cover a bunch of stuff about Alpha. We've seen a lot of changes to Moonkin on Alpha, starting to gear up for Shadowlands. Straight up BFA is just not that enjoyable to me anymore, creating content for it, so I've been looking more towards Alpha-focused stuff, Shadowlands-focused stuff. I've been writing a bunch of feedback for Alpha, balance-driven, that kind of thing. So this Moonkin Monthly is going to be primarily geared towards that. We're going to have an interesting discussion about the pros and cons of the systems, just like the changes of how Moonkin's going to be functioning. Is it good for balance moving forward? I mean, I guess that's up for debate. And I actually really like reading a bunch of different people's opinions on the matter, because I have my opinion, but like at the end of the day, I value like more of a community sentiment as well. I write like the guide for Wowhead. I do a lot of other stuff. I'm writing a bunch of feedback on the Alpha forums, so I do value a lot of different people's opinions on how Moonkin should feel and how Moonkin should play. So I've been reading a lot of different stuff, and we also do have some changes to the Eclipse system. I created a video about Alpha Moonkin and all the stuff that was changing a couple weeks back. You guys can check that out. But there has been a change on the Eclipse system that we're going to discuss in this video as well. But in the meantime, I got to thank the patrons. Arui, Never Knew, Gesu, JD, Krona, Lashy, Lunor, Mirami, Mordia, Mr. Sliggy, Nate Shift, Parkle, Pixel, Samonia, Saro, Simonson, Solanas, Sauerkraut, Tiggs, and Alvigia. So big shout out to all of those guys. Thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate it. Appreciate all the support and everything else. And with that, let's get into the video. So first off, I want to start talking about the pros and cons of how I felt that Alpha Moonkin has played. Obviously, this is from my limited experience of playing Alpha. So far, I've done both of the dungeons that are available, so the Necrotic Wake and Halls of Atonement. I've tested two separate covenants, so I've tested the Venthyr Covenant, and I've tested the... I don't know the name of the other one, but the Symbiosis-esque thing that's not really Symbiosis at all. It's like a really bad version. I don't know the name of it. It's not Venthyr, but it's that one. So I've tested both of those. I've leveled through Bastion, and I've reveled through Ravendreth. So I have a fair amount of experience. I've actually done a decent amount of dungeons to where I can speak solidly on how some of the systems or how balance feels to play. That is just getting out in front of it and talking about just the experience of what I have seen so far. Obviously, my opinion is subject to change just based on how much more I play and how much more I see and how much more I do. But this would be, for all intents and purposes, this right here. So the pros that I've seen from balance so far on the PTR. One, it's incredibly deterministic, meaning that most of your damage is going to be within your control, for better or for worse. You're going to be able to control when your damage timings come out. You're going to be able to control just like how everything functions, and the fight is like you're not going to change fight to fight. And the reason for that being is because they have recently changed Eclipse in Shadowlands. So originally Eclipse had a 30-second ICD, and there's a 25% chance on each Starfire/Solar Wrath cast to be able to proc the opposite side of the Eclipse. They've changed that to where now casting 3 Starfire empowers Wrath for 10 seconds, and casting 3 Wraths empowers Starfire for 10 seconds. And the Eclipses occur in alteration. That's very important to note. Them occurring in alteration is actually super important because of just like the fact of when you want your stuff to line up is going to be fight dependent, and it's going to be like dungeon dependent. You're going to have to be looking to wait to see how all of this works out. And Blizzard has made a blue post about it. It says, Eclipse catching up slightly belated on this week's update, summarizing some of the biggest points coming out of early feedback. Generally negative feedback on the RNG startup of Eclipse. A few people did notice there was pretty strong bad luck protection on the proc, which there was, but ultimately didn't seem to help in this case. So what they're saying here is that it was really slow paced on the opener, particularly on AoE, to where you'd have to cast like 3, 4, 5 Solar Wraths in a row before you ended up getting that Lunar Eclipse. And that just felt fairly slow because you have to pre-dot everything before you start to generate or cast your fillers and get into your Eclipse. The idea of the 30-second ICD just wasn't worth all the confusion. It was simply intended to help alternate eclipses in long combats. So it's clear to straightforwardly do that. I actually don't disagree. I think 100% this is the correct port. Like, that is very correct. An important detail of this change, the number of casts to start an eclipse is now fixed at 3, is that the visible in the default UI highlighting. Basically, it's on your action bar, you see like a number, it's like 3, 2, 1 on your action bar, and that is what they're talking about, the default UI highlighting. This lets you know, among other things, when you've been out of combat for long enough for it to reset and start another eclipse again. You don't have to guess about that. It also makes mechanics clear. For example, you can enter the eclipse immediately after celestial alignment ends. Okay, so basically what they're saying is that there's no buff associated with it. It's just going to be on your action bar. I'm sure there's going to be a weak aura made at some point. But you also, once you're out of combat for 25 seconds, it seems like the eclipse is reset to where they're back at 3 stacks, so you can enter either eclipse. Another problem solved by no longer being random is that you're no longer stuck in the middle of a wrong cast whenever Eclipse starts. Eclipse feels a bit stronger whenever you play it in this version for this reason. You can play on a buffed nuke or Star Surge crisply at the start of an Eclipse, as well as allowing more advanced planning around dot refreshes and movement. I think I see where they're coming from, but I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case, because you can't delay an Eclipse really well. Like, especially at the start of a trash pull or something like that in Mythic Plus, it's really hard to delay an Eclipse. But I do see where they're coming from. Finally, it's expected that there are better and worse Eclipse timings in a long encounter based on whether Wrath or Starfire is more valuable at giving moments, and there's some ability to manipulate it as you learn what's coming. There hasn't been a lot of opportunity to be able to explore this yet. I agree. But Star Surge timing, dot timing, celestial alignment, and choice of Eclipse starters are ways to influence the cycle. Those are actually great points, and I fully agree with everything that is being said here. Basically, like I was stating, balance is going to become incredibly deterministic as a pro. I'm going to talk. It's also going to become a con as well, because balance is going to be so deterministic that there's very few to no sources of RNG inside of your kit, which can allow your kit to be stale. I think that there is room in the game for a fully deterministic rotation and fully deterministic just like way of gameplay, but I think that the systems and I think that the core of how balance plays needs to be very crisp in that regard, and it needs to be very refined and very strong. I think it can get there. I think with Legendaries, Covenants, Soulbinds, all of that shit, it absolutely can make it to that point. I think there's going to be a lot to be seen, especially with all of the systems coming. But balance is now in a state where you control your gameplay to a very strong degree, and stronger players are going to be rewarded because they are better players. So that's going to be cool. Another pro to the system as a whole is I feel like with the removal... Okay, we're going to talk about removal systems, but with the removal of Azurite and like essences and stuff like that, it's really going to be easy to balance our Starfall versus our Star Surge. Maybe with the Soulbinds and with the other stuff, it's going to be fairly complicated. Maybe I'm being a bit naive in this regard, but I think that that's going to be interesting. Another pro of balance currently is that there are a lot of classes that are target capped on the PTR. Balance is not going to be one of those. Starfall is going to be an ability that remains uncapped. Balance also has multiple dots in Moonfire and Sunfire that are going to remain uncapped for a prolonged period of time. So as for the cons, I think balance is really still slow on the ramp, especially in Mythic Plus on AoE. I think it's always going to be slow on the ramp. You're going to have like ramp up timing where you end up applying your dots, you end up getting into your clips, then you start casting your abilities. But something that is nice is that I feel like the class is going to be a lot less death by 1,000 paper cuts and like more death by strong spenders. Because right now, Star Surge is strong, Starfall is incredibly weak. But right now, Starfall is doing like an obscene amount of damage in dungeons, like 30 to 40% of my damage in dungeons, like something like that. But I bet whenever you end up getting longer, it's going to be less, but it's still been looking pretty solid. Okay. So the long ramp is definitely a con as a whole, but I think it's going to be fairly cool. I think some people kind of look at how this deterministic Eclipse system ends up working out, where it's being converted for, like, whenever you cast 3 Starfires or 3 Wraths, then you end up getting into an Eclipse, and they're like, this is a worse version for me than the Eclipse bar. I don't know if I necessarily disagree. I think that there's room to make that argument for both. I think for me, all in all, the class has been fun, and I like it more than whenever they would strip away BFA systems, which gets me into my next point, the removal of systems from BFA going into Shadowlands. So we're removing essences, and we're removing removing essences and removing Azurite. So with that, if you stripped away BFA Moonkin and you remove the Azurite and the essences, the class would be very stale at its core. It would be like Uldir levels of basic, and it's like just a builder spender, and there's nothing to it. There's literally nothing about it that's like very fun. So the change of empowerments and moving that into Eclipse. Eclipse is literally just another name for empowerments, by the way. It's just a rebranded version. And the change in the move to where you actually have a lot of control over how your damage ends up working out is going to be kind of nice. Yeah, so that's just my opinion on that, because if you removed all those systems away and stripped balance of everything, then it would be... I think it would just be worse off for it. Some more pros that I just thought of for balance moving into Shadowlands is the addition of more utility spells. So you're getting... you have the ability to be able to talent into Incapacitating Roar, Maim, or Ursul's Vortex. Those are all dope. Typhoon is now baseline for Moonkin. And then now on that row where Typhoon was, you have the option to talent into Mighty Bash, Mass Root, or Heart of the Wild, which empowers your ability to be able to heal with like affinities, do damage in cat form. I wonder if like you're going to play cat affinity and pop Heart of the Wild on pull after your celestial alignment fades, and then you kind of blast in cat form. I think that would be the most degenerate ass like strategy for a balanced root player, but it would be kind of interesting, I guess. I would fucking hate it, but I would have to do it if it's the best damage, right? Or it improves your ability to be able to tank stuff in bear form. So Heart of the Wild is actually a fairly interesting spell in that regard, but balance is just getting more utility ability somehow, and I bought a new mouse because of it. Like I went and bought a G600 because I needed more binds, because I was like, I don't know where I'm going to bind all this crap. So I had to go out and buy a new mouse because they took Druid, which has the most binds, and made it have more. But I mean, you're not hearing me complaining about like more utility. I like utility abilities. I think that it's going to make us a better class in Mythic Plus. And with that being said, Moonkin is seeming like it's going to be one of the top classes in Mythic Plus, because I talked about earlier, the removal of the target cap on AoE is going to be fairly strong. I think that we're going to be able to run a more balanced single target and AoE build than most classes generally as well. You're probably going to end up playing trees again for the 15 row. Incarn is looking like it would be the go-to talent for Mythic Plus, because it affects not only your Starfall but your Star Surge as well. It's going to be super well-rounded in that regard, so I suspect that that's going to be either that, or you end up playing Star-Lord in Mythic Plus. It's going to be one of those two. Both look like they're probably going to be pretty strong. You look like you probably play Soul of the Forest in Raid. And then Twin Moons versus Stellar Drift, I think that there is room for both. But with the way that they've changed Starfall, the 2 additional seconds on Starfall, the 25% increased damage and the casting while moving seems like a really good option for Stellar Drift. Something that we've noticed about Starfall, and especially whenever you're playing Stellar Drift, is that you can't overlap Starfalls currently, which feels kind of awkward, I'm not going to lie. So there's kind of been a push or some feedback that has been proposed to hopefully get Starfall hasted again, just to where you would be able to layer Starfalls, or not, even if you're not able to layer Starfalls, you're able to drop like more consecutively. But the downside of it is like, if it is hasted, then haste is the only stat you're ever going to be looking to go for AoE. So there are pros and cons. I don't know, man. At the end of the day, it feels awkward to not be able to drop like multiple Starfalls, especially whenever you're in like Lunar Eclipse. So say your Starfall's lasting 10 seconds, you're going to cast, let's say 2 star. Okay, so you're going to cast 150 Astral Power. You're going to immediately go into Lunar Eclipse. You're going to cast 150 Astral Power Starfall. you're probably going to cast 2 Star Surges before your next Starfall to extend your Eclipse for another 6 seconds. Then you're going to cast another Starfall to be able to wait out the rest of the duration of that lunar eclipse cycle. It's just all in all kind of awkward, but I guess it's going to be interesting to see. We're back to start. We're still going to be Star Surging on AoE though, just to extend Eclipse because we're not able to layer our Starfalls, which I wish to hear some of the feedback in the comment section about that. How do you guys feel about that? Because for me, I wish I would rather just be layering Starfalls and just like slamming them, as opposed to only being able to have one Starfall out at a time and then just like ramming through Star Surges to be able to extend Eclipse. Because to me, that seems like it's going to be less fun than just pressing a bunch of Starfalls and watching how much damage it does. Maybe the minority of that. Maybe other people would like the ability to be able to press one Starfall and maintain it like a dot buff and just watch it fucking just rot everything out and not have to just slam it all the time as their only AoE spender. But it definitely, like, both options create for some diversity of choice, which is interesting because you're still going to have Star Surge for whenever you're looking to do priority damage on AoE, but I don't know. There's a lot of I'm 50-50 on it. I think generally I'd rather have it hasted and that kind of thing than anything else. And then as for the tier 100 row, I still don't know what I think about it. So full moon, you have new moon, you have Fury of Elune, and you have shooting stars. They nerfed the AP generation pretty heavily from most stuff coming into this expansion. So they nerfed the AP gen of Nature's Balance. They nerfed it from 2 astral power every 3 seconds to 1 astral power every 2 seconds. So that got nerfed, and then they nerfed the astral power generation of shooting stars from 4 astral power per tick to 2 astral power per tick. And so just across the board, they nerfed our generation, but whenever they did nerf our generation, they nerfed the cost of Star Surge to 30 astral power, which is dope. Which means without empowerments as well, you're able to triple Star Surge. Like, you can go, you can build up to 60 astral power, and then you can pop Celestial Alignment, which now Celestial Alignment only gives you 30, not 40. You pop Celestial Alignment, and you can ram through 3 straight Star Surges consecutively and not worry about capping empowerments. And I love that. And I love that with all of my being. I love triple Star Surging, and I love the concept of it. I think that is so fucking cool. So I'm really happy with that. That's going to be dope. But with the nerf to our astral power generation, just getting back a little bit on topic, it's like... so Shooting Stars got nerfed. Fury of Elune and New Moon both stayed the same in terms of astral power generation, but Fury of Elune kind of got a nerf, right? So Fury of Elune caught part of the target capped AoE thing, where it's not target capped, but it does full damage to one main target, then diminished damage on multiple other targets. So it's going to be worse on AoE as a whole, but I suspect it's probably still going to be our Mythic Plus go-to unless for some reason they remove the diminishing returns on Shooting Stars. Because like right now, it looks like the diminishing returns on Shooting Stars proc rate is probably here to stay. Because right now, basically, as you add more targets to Shooting Stars' value decreases, or like the procs per minute per target is lower, is rather what I mean. So it'll be interesting to see what talent you end up playing on single target. Like, gosh. Because to me, it looks like Fury of Elune is going to be our AoE choice, just because New Moon splits damage and Shooting Stars has diminishing returns on AoE, so Fury of Elune is like the only thing that really scales with additional targets. New Moon may be like the go-to on 1 and 2 targets, and then like Shooting Stars is that spread target kind of thing, and that 2 to 4 range maybe. I don't know. I hate our tier 100 row, and I kind of wish they would rework it. But yeah, that's rough. Okay, so I guess the next topic is something I wanted to talk about our deterministic rotation and how I feel like it should change with like covenants and not only just covenants but also legendaries. But so basically for Moonkin, there are some very interesting covenants and one of the which is Night Fae. And whenever you have Night Fae, there will be okay, let me pull this up. Here you go. All right. So Kyrian, basically you form a bond with your ally on cooldown. You may empower the bond for a period of time, granted you an effect based on your partner's role and granting them an effect based on your role. This one sucks. If we have to play this, we're going to be fucking sad. I call it symbiosis because it's a joke. Like, you don't actually want to be playing this. Like, anything that involves you having to play with another character is miserable. Venthyr, this one is dope. I've played with this one, and basically it says Ravenous Frenzy. For a period of time, druid spells you cast increase your damage, healing, and haste by a percentage. Stacking, if you spend a period of time idle, the frenzy overcomes you, consuming a percentage of your health per stack, stunning you, then ending. Like, basically, if you're feral, like, your melees count as well. That's probably something to note, but you need to be casting like shape-shifting in and out of forms. You could be casting even like regrowth or rejuve or something like that. All of those work as things that you could do. You could like dot on the move. Those are things that allow you to not stay idle, but I really like this. This is really powerful. Then you have Necrolord, which is Adapt to Swarm. It's a command a swarm that heals or deals shadow damage to a target and increases the effectiveness of your periodic effects upon them, like your dots. Upon expiration, it travels to a new target within range, alternating between friend and foe up to a set number of times. To me, this reads like a healer one. Like, I read this and I believe that this is probably going to be a healer covenant. And then we have Night Fae, which is Convoke the Spirits, which is call upon a Night Fae for an eruption of energy, channeling a rapid flurry of 16 druid spells and abilities over 4 seconds. You will cast Moonfire, Wrath, Regrowth, Rejuvenation, Thrash, Rake, Shred, and Iron Fur on appropriate nearby targets, favoring your current specialization. So for us, it's probably Moonfire and Wrath, right? So Night Fae is going to be fucking dope. Venthyr is going to be fucking dope. Both of those are going to be so fun for Moonkin, I feel like. And the fact that we're going to make a choice with our covenants is going to make me sad. But I think that I think that will be a large portion of how we get like burst damage. Like, if we want more burst damage, we can play Venthyr, power that up with, say, something like Soul of the Forest. So you're playing Celestial Alignment. You're able to extend your Celestial Alignment for a prolonged period of time with all of that haste as well. And you're going to be able to blast. So that's going to be nice. And then as for the deterministic systems rewards, I really hope something like Onus Intuition comes back. Personally, Onus Intuition and Impeccable Fell Essence were some of my favorite legendaries come Legion. And the fact that this fully got removed was very sad. I fucking loved playing Vision Perfection this expansion. I thought that was the most sick shit for Moonkin. You have like a 215 cooldown on your CA, and you get random Celestial Alignment procs. You also pop that with Arcanic Pulsar, and it just feels so nice. And I love it. And if they brought back Onus Intuition and Impeccable Fell Essence as legendaries in Shadowlands, I would be over the moon happy. So those are the things that I really hope for in Shadowlands. I've spoke about it numerous times. I like Shadowlands Moonkin. I think it's fun to play. There are some people who think it's too slow paced or too this, too that. I think that they've been watching people stream alpha and they are leveling or doing dungeons where pulls last very short periods of time and bosses last a minute and are struggling to get like a really good gauge on how everything works. I think Shadowlands Moonkin is sick, and I cannot wait for raid testing to be able to get proper opinions on it. I can't wait for Mythic Plus to come out. I can't wait for all of the systems to be released to where I can get like a full understanding of an opinion of it. But right now, I am 2 thumbs up on it. Granted, at the same time, I always tend to land on the side of optimistic, just generally whenever I'm looking at changes, because I like to give Blizzard the benefit of the doubt unless they are making something that is a catastrophic failure. I believe not being able to change covenants is a catastrophic failure, so I think that's bad. But I think how Moonkin plays is probably going to land on the positive side, especially better than if you just stripped away BFA systems. Can you guys remember? If you guys remember, from Legion moving into BFA, they just completely stripped down our legendaries and stripped out all of our weapon stuff. And Moonkin was so trash, and they fixed it at the last moment of the final day, and just barely came through with like the most clutch fixes to make BFA Moonkin playable, where you didn't end up casting 8 wraths in a row and you were just miserable for a full expansion. So they made it a little bit better. They added what is currently on live called Eclipse, where you proc your like random empowerment on the other side to try to make the rotation less monotonous in that regard. And currently on Shadowlands Alpha, the rotation is not monotonous. It's very fixed. but it's not monotonous. It rotates and it changes it up, but it's not going to change between pull to pull. You're going to be able to kind of get a good gauge on how everything works. I think it's going to be sick, and I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm going to be creating a lot more content for Shadowlands Alpha as more stuff comes out. I cannot wait for Torghast from Moonkin. I suspect that they're going to be releasing something of the Druid Torghast stuff, because some of that random Druid ability Torghasty stuff got data mined recently, so I'm looking forward to testing that and giving my opinion on that. I hope that Moonkin and Torghast is better than Moonkin and Horrific Visions, and that's where I'll leave that. But in the meantime, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Check out my stuff down in the description. I'm going to link all of these articles that I looked at today in this video down in the description as well. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out. Later.